Indycar together with Valvoline.
Hello and welcome to the second round of the PPG IndyCar World Series from Phoenix, Arizona. The fastest 1 mile oval track in the world hosts the Slick 50 200-mile race, an event that Nigel Mansell is very motivated to try and win following the disappointing start to his title defence 2 weeks ago in Australia. Victory for Mansell would not only see an improvement in his points tally, but also the setting of yet another new record. The 1992 world champion currently matches AJ Foyt's record of 4 consecutive oval circuit wins and has yet to be beaten on a 1 mile track. Can he put behind him the memory of his heavy accident in qualifying here last year, match the success of Michael Andretti in round 1? Well, that will certainly be Mansell's aim. And he has qualified in 3rd position for today's race at Phoenix. Not without drama, though, because Mansell has been involved in another accident here in the practice sessions. Final practice session yesterday, which was not the timed session. He actually ended up going off at turn 1, the very corner that he went off at last year, and crashed into Jacques Villeneuve. The final practice session, as I say, untimed and allowing all of the cars out at the same time. And Mansell saying that he was actually slowing down at the time and he really could not understand how the car got away from him. Well, damage done to his car and to the car of Jacques Villeneuve, but both drivers unhurt and both drivers competing in the race here today. Jacques Villeneuve, the story of qualifying, though, apart from the fact that he got hit by Nigel Mansell, because Villeneuve, the man who celebrated his 23rd birthday yesterday, is lining up on the front row of the grid for only his 2nd ever IndyCar start. A superb performance, and the son of the late, great Gilles Villeneuve, starting off his IndyCar career in real style and showing that he really has an awful lot of talent. Villeneuve's time just 2/100ths off pole position, and interestingly enough, it's 10 years ago that his uncle, also named Jacques, who also raced in the IndyCar series, put it on pole here at Phoenix some 10 years ago. So some history there, and Villeneuve on the front row of the grid after a tremendous qualifying performance. But who is on pole, I hear you ask? Well, on pole position is another Canadian. It's Paul Tracy, who led here for so long last year, only to crash out of the race, and Paul Tracy in the Penske in pole position. So we've got Nigel Mansell in the Lola, 3rd on the grid, and there he is, getting ready for his 1st ever race here at Phoenix. We've got Jacques Villeneuve in the Reynard on the outside of the front row, and we've got Paul Tracy in the Penske on pole position. So once again, 3 different chassis in the top 3 places on the grid, and it's all looking very, very competitive indeed. Well, Nigel Mansell, pretty happy with his qualifying performance. He said the conditions changing an awful lot for the qualifying run, and in fact an awful lot of the teams finding that the qualifying conditions, a very strong wind came up, created an awful lot of understeer in the cars. In other words, the cars were all trying to run wide as they went through the corners, and that meant a complete change around from what they'd done so far in the practice sessions during the week. So that really did cause a few upsets in the qualifying order. Poleman Tracy setting that very, very quick time, but teammate Emerson Fittipaldi, who had been fastest on Friday, only managing to set the 5th fastest time. Well, Fittipaldi did have some other problems in qualifying, not just the setup. His pop-off valve also blew on the 1st lap, and that means that he wasn't getting his full quota of turbo boost from his Ilmor V8 Indy engine, and therefore Fittipaldi having to make do with 5th fastest place on the grid. So an all-Canadian front row for the Slick 50 200, and the question surely is, can Paul Tracy continue where he left off last year here, when he was leading by such a great distance, only to crash on lap 161 out of the scheduled 200 in trying to get past Jimmy Vasser. Tracy really had put in a stunning performance in last year's race before that moment, And last year's winner in the end, none other than Mario Andretti. But this time perhaps Paul Tracy, with the help of Rick Mears back in the pits, who was certainly very much the master of oval track racing in his career, now very much in the role of guiding the members of the Penske team. And Paul Tracy starting his first ever oval track race from pole position. It's his 4th career pole, but it's the first one that he's ever taken on an oval circuit. And he certainly was very, very happy after the qualifying sessions, and delighted to take his first pole on the oval circuit. If he wins this afternoon's race, he stands to win an additional $90,000 in the Marlboro Pole Award scheme. But let's have a look at the grid in a little bit more detail. Tracy then on pole position with that 20.424, a new record around the Phoenix 1 mile circuit. Jacques Villeneuve lining up alongside him on the outside of the front row. Nigel Mansell 3rd on the grid, and alongside him his teammate Mario Andretti, winner last year of his 53rd IndyCar race ever. Raul Boesel, who finished 2nd here last year, lining up in 5th place on the grid in another Lola. So Lola's 2nd, 3rd, 4th and 5th fastest, then the next Penske of Emerson Fittipaldi. Bobby Gordon in the Valvoline Lona, lining up next on the inside of row 4. And alongside him, Teo Fabi, qualifying 8th this year, qualified 8th last year as well. Alonso Jr. had a few problems in his qualifying session, so the 3rd Penske driver a little bit further down the grid. And alongside him, Scott Goodyear, the man who was on a pole position here last year, not going quite so well yet in the Budweiser King racing car. Jimmy Vasser finished a career best 3rd here last year. He starts from 11th on the grid in the Reynard after setting the 2nd fastest time during the week. And Michael Andretti, winner of the first race of the championship, down in 12th place on the grid, but hoping for better things in the race. Scott Sharp, the rookie, a great performance, lining up alongside teammate Dominic Dobson. Stefan Johansson, hoping for a good result, lines up alongside Adrian Fernandez, the Mexican, in the Gallers car. Davy Jones in the AJ Foyt run car lines up alongside Brazilian ex-motorcycle racer Marco Greco. And Dutch driver Arie Luijendijk crashed his car during the week, but makes it onto row 10, and alongside him, Mike Groff. Japanese Hiro Matsushita lines up alongside the Honda-powered Lola of Bobby Rahal. And John Paul Jr. makes a return to IndyCar racing. He lines up on the 12th row of the grid with Willie T. Ribbs. Buddy Lazier on the inside of the 13th row, and alongside him Brian Till, who's sharing the MyJack car this year with Robbie Buell. Jeff Andretti making a welcome return to IndyCar racing, and the final man on the grid, Maurizio Gugelmin, after qualifying problems in his Reynard. Another one to watch out for in the course of the race, because he could well work his way up from the back of the field. This isn't his first oval track race, remember. He raced at Nazareth at the end of last year, so he's got a little bit of oval track experience, and he could well be one to watch throughout the course of the race. Cars being made ready then for the first of the parade laps. And moving away from the grid, Paul Tracy and Jacques Villeneuve, Nigel Mansell and Mario Andretti on that 2nd row. Andretti just 0.06 of a second slower than Mansell in the qualifying session. Both of them struggling with the understeer that afflicted most of the teams in yesterday's qualifying session. Mansell talking after qualifying, talking about the demands of the circuit, saying the speeds are just incredible here at Phoenix. The average speed, the fastest time of the week, was actually set by Emerson Fittipaldi in Friday's practice. The average speed over 177 miles an hour, the average around this 1 mile circuit. Truly astonishing speeds, and the track certainly living up to its name as the fastest 1 mile oval circuit in the world. Mansell talking about qualifying, saying in this kind of qualifying you have to be a bit lucky with the changing conditions. He had no complaints. He reckoned the team had done a great job with the car, and certainly looking forward to this chance to try and beat AJ Foyt's record of 4 consecutive wins on oval circuits. Raoul Boesel lining up in 5th position then on the grid. He was 2nd fastest on Friday, so we could well see some quick laps from Raoul Boesel throughout the course of the race, but we've certainly got to watch out for the man lining up alongside him, Emerson Fittipaldi. Fittipaldi, following Paul Tracy in last year's race, took over the lead when Tracy crashed, only to crash on the restart himself after picking up debris from Paul Tracy's earlier accident. So Fittipaldi also wanting to make up for last year's lost victory. And we could well see Tracy storming off again. That seems to be his style, but we could well see Emerson Fittipaldi taking things a little bit more carefully, a little bit easy, just settling himself into the race. And you never know, he could be the man there at the end. Robbie Gordon lining up next. And the young Californian crashed last year, another one with a great chance. So the cars coming round then on the parade laps, ready to start this 2nd round of the PPG IndyCar World Series. And Michael Andretti, winner of the Australian race, way back in 12th place on the grid. He's got plenty of work to do if he's going to challenge Nigel Mansell in this particular race, but Reynolds will have been working hard to try and get the setup right. We're about to get underway with the 2nd round. It is Paul Tracy who gets away from Jack Villeneuve in the front row. Let's go to our American commentators.
It's 3 wide as they come off of the corner.
And you can see that Villeneuve, the lack of experience, he backed right off, but Boesel was one of those who got a superb start.
As Tracy flashes across the line, this is the first time since 1988 that the pole sitter has actually led the first lap. So it's Tracy, followed by Nigel Mansell, and then Villeneuve, and then the 2nd Penske car of Emerson Fittipaldi. Al Unser Jr. is working his way up through the field, so is Robbie Gordon.
Tracy last year was in total control of this race, and he threw it all away trying to lap back markers. He has matured, he tells us, because it is so easy to make mistakes here because the speeds are so high. He'll be in traffic before too long.
Remember the accident in final practice yesterday. The video originally looked very much like this as Villeneuve began to challenge Mansell. Now it's a fight for 2nd place on the race course. Villeneuve is a rookie, so is Mansell at this track.
Villeneuve rebuilt this car. They were not that happy with the other spare car that they brought here, so the work went into trying to build the car that he was confident with, because you need confidence on a racetrack like this. Look how close he is still to Mansell.
Villeneuve looking for the opportunity now. Over to the front side again. Fittipaldi patiently waits, running in 4th place. Mario Andretti is 5th. Teo Fabi 6th. Robbie Gordon 7th. Now he's stuck right up in the back. Villeneuve darts to the inside, lets him know that he's there. Through 3, through 4. Laps being turned here at just over 20 seconds a lap.
There's the traffic. Jeff Andretti in the Euro Motorsports car backed by Gillette for this event moves over and lets the leaders through.
5 laps. 5 laps, and the leaders are already overhauling the back of the field. That's another reason they call him a bull ring.
Look what happened there. The traffic allowed Mansell to draw out 5 or 6 car lengths on Villeneuve, but we'll see when he close back up. There's Mario.
Mario Andretti, he runs in 6th place. The next car in the lineup is actually Teo Fabi, the bright yellow car, so Mario is already happy. Now Robbie Gordon has moved in. There's Teo. Robbie Gordon got around Teo. As Teo begins to slow a little bit, looks like Teo got caught up in traffic. So Robbie Gordon in the Valvoline car now comes up into 6th place.
And it was Jeff Andretti who was caught in the mix there. He didn't know whether to go high or to go low. He stayed in the middle, and they went round both sides. There's little Al, has not had a very good weekend here so far.
Al Unser Jr. has been struggling. He now runs in 8th place behind Scott Goodyear and tries to challenge Scott. The leader, shades of last year, remains Paul Tracy. He led 151 laps here, only to end his day against the wall.
confidence in this car before he begins to push it. So, as of yet, he has not begun to hang it out.
Al Unser Jr., though, has finished 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th in the last 5 years. Is this time for a first? As he tiptoes his way up through the field. Whoa.
Look at Scott Goodyear, qualified 10th, wasn't happy. The stagger grew way too much on the inside of that car during qualifying, which meant it gave him tremendous amounts of understeer, and he qualified slower than he had hoped.
Battle for 5th place as Robbie Gordon now closes on Mario Andretti. Mario, the Texaco car there. He has a red roll bar. Look at this. Nigel Mansell comes up and very quickly overhauls Paul Tracy. He has now won every race computed on a 1-mile track. Let's see if he can do it with this win here today.
Well, so he took 2 or 3 or 4 laps to settle everything down, but he has dragged Villeneuve along with him. So is Tracy slowing down, having shown tremendous pace in those opening 3 or 4 laps.
Is he showing patience now? Is this a new Tracy that knows that he doesn't have to lead in the early going?
Well, showing patience and slowing down are 2 different things here. Emerson comes down under Villeneuve.
Emerson tries on Villeneuve, doesn't get the job done, but he's right there and beginning to worry, the young Canadian. 23 years old yesterday. Currently running in 3rd place. Then Fittipaldi, then Gordon. You saw all of them together.
And of course, everybody expected Michael Andretti to be the leader in the new Reynard camp on these ovals, but it was Villeneuve who Barry Green speaks so highly of for his engineering ability and feel for this car at such a tender young age. He said a definite star of the future.
Now everybody at the front of the field having to overhaul the back of the field. One of the problems, you're getting a hint of it here. It is very windy. In fact, there are gusty wind warnings in the Valley of the Sun, the Phoenix area, and it's been blowing debris and sand onto this racetrack.
Look at Villeneuve. Now, he said after qualifying, his biggest problem will be dealing with traffic. He has never had to do this before in cars this big and this fast, so he is on a huge learning curve here, but I'll tell you what, he is learning fast.
Back onto the main stretch. As he continues to hold off a charging Emerson Fittipaldi. On Beacus, you have an update on Villeneuve.
Well, yes, we do. We speak with Barry Green, and he gave us a thumbs up. He said it looks like all the work we did till the late hours last night have paid off. He's happy with the car. Right now, as you're talking about, he's gaining lots of experience at the front.
Now this despite the fact that they don't have all the poke. How high he gets there and then chops off the corner. Nice piece of driving, just keeping the car off the wall and staying in front of Fittipaldi. They don't have all the pieces on this car they would have liked. They had some special pieces for here at Phoenix, and they were damaged in that crash.
Now that move there that you just saw by Jacques Villeneuve shows the confidence he has in the car. He pulled high round the outside of John Paul in the Team Losi car and had the confidence that that car had the grip all the way around the outside. Very brave move. We're with Robbie Gordon now.
5th place car looking forward.
That's John Paul
Jr. just in front of him, and here comes little Al.
So Al made the move. He had the patience, he stayed and he waited, but look at Gordon around the outside.
Oh, as they split the difference, little Al holds the position, stays in 5th place. Boy, these are great races.
This is what you get on oval track racing. Traffic and high speed, almost freeway trains running down through here. But Al Jr. has made the pass now. He's in clear air. Can he catch up to that leading pack? He's currently in 5th place.
Paul Tracy just ticked off his 19th lap. Nigel Mansell came across as the leader on lap 19. So we've had 2 leaders here in the first 20 miles. First Paul Tracy and then Nigel Mansell taking over. Tracy's running the fastest laps thus far, averaged about 157 miles an hour, but his quickest lap has been at 166.7.
There's teammates. Robbie Gordon on the high side of Woody T. Ribs. Derek Walker said they had a big leash on Robbie Gordon this weekend because there's been a lot of damage done. But on a 1-mile oval, his best position, best finish so far has been 4th at Nazareth.
Not yet made a podium finish. Robbie Gordon and Jim Vassar. Keep an eye on that number 18 car. He has been solid in the first 2 races. Well, we're in the second race, but he was solid in the practice for this one and had a great showing in Australia. He was 3rd here last year. Mario Andretti, he continues to run, but he's falling through the field now 9th. Gary Gerald, is there a problem?
clearly there is. They think that there's low tire pressure on one of the tires, and that's what Mario has radioed into the crew.
Okay, well, the position now with still Nigel Mansell leading it, with Paul Tracy seemingly taking it fairly steady in second place. Jacques Villeneuve putting in a superb performance. It's back down to fourth place with Fittipaldi just in front of him now, but still Villeneuve really is putting in a superb performance in only his second ever IndyCar race and defying his lack of experience on these oval circuits. But at the moment, Nigel Mansell is the man who looks, as we said, very, very determined to try and make it 5 oval wins in a row. He's leading the rest of the field, and it's the two Penske's of Tracy and Fittipaldi that are chasing after him at the moment. Alonso Jr. looking very, very threatening. He's coming up in 5th position and trying to make up for the problems that he had in qualifying. So the Penske's are bearing down on the Lola of Nigel Mansell as Fittipaldi now coming up to try and take Paul Tracy. We could well see a change around for second place, but Tracy just losing out a little bit in the traffic, and he'll have to try and close up. Fittipaldi really is putting the pressure on his teammate. Back in just a moment.
Sport Live.
You rejoin us here at Phoenix, and we have the first yellow flag period of the race with Willie T. Ribbs, a heavy impact against the wall, and it's brought out the first yellow flags, so the pace car is out. We're going to take a look at the accident. So Willie T. Ribbs was the man who lost it. Let's see what happened in the accident. Well, just the final stages, you can see a very heavy impact against the wall for Willie T., competing in a full season of IndyCar racing this year. And, well, we saw him clambering out of the car after this. As you can see, Willie T getting out of the car, so not badly hurt, thankfully, but that certainly could have changed things around a bit. Nigel Mansell came in to make his first pit stop, an interesting choice. So now you can see the positions after Mansell came in, with Paul Tracy now leading ahead of Fittipaldi and Alonso Jr. So the three Penske's now holding the top 3 places, but Mansell came in and the Penske's did not come in. However, Mansell lost time in the pits. He came in, made his tyre stop, went to go back out again and stalled the engine of his Newman Haas Lola. They had to pull him back into his pit bay, restart the engine, and he dropped back behind Jacques Villeneuve in all that because Villeneuve had also come in. So we're going to see an interesting change in strategies here, with the Penske cars not apparently coming into the pits on this yellow flag. The Newman Haas cars, both of them came in, both Nigel Mansell and Mario Andretti. Also coming into the pits was Jacques Villeneuve, and you can see the stickers on his tyres still as he comes round in 4th place on the road there, but a little bit further down the order, in fact, after that round of pit stop. So Paul Tracy leading the field past Willie T. Ribbs' stricken car on the outside of turn 1, the very corner where Nigel Mansell had his accident last year and where he had an accident yesterday with Jacques Villeneuve in that final practice session. So Mansell's lost a little bit of time. Can he make that time back up in the next part of the race? We've completed around about, we're coming up soon to the 40 lap mark out of 200, so still a long, long way to go yet. And interesting choice to bring him in that early into the pits, and that obviously means they're going to be making, if they're not too many other yellow flag periods, it would look like 3 stops for Mansell. So in fact, on that updated order, Robbie Gordon in fact still ahead of Alonso Jr., Dominic Dobson and Mike Groff. Let's rejoin Paul Page and Derek Daly.
First 9 cars, that's through Jimmy Vasser in the order, are on the lead lap, but because of that blend line, people like Bobby Rahal, Villeneuve, Mansell are a lap behind the leader. Let's go to Gary Terrell.
Interesting strategy in the Penske pit, Paul. Roger Penske, with 3 cars, of course, elects to bring in Al Unser Jr., a 10-second stop for fuel and 4 tires. They've left both Tracy and Fittipaldi out there now. It's a bit of a gamble, but we'll see if they get another opportunity before lap 64 to duck in.
All right, well, as you look at Roger Penske, they're always innovative and work with it. Along with the new chassis and engines entering the field for the '94 season, Gary Gerould explores how some teams are making additional aerodynamic improvements.
And as you heard them mention there, the lap that Nigel Mansell has lost and the fact that Allison Jr. has come in and made his pit stop, they've gambled a little bit by leaving Paul Tracy and Emerson Fittipaldi out, but of course they do have a lap lead over the rest of the field at this point, so they can, in theory, still pit under a green flag situation because they will lose a position, but they'll also stay on the same lap. There you see a picture of the Nigel Mansell pit as the crew and the folks there try and figure out exactly where they are in position. They are one lap down, as you heard. Michael Andretti currently one lap down in 14th position. Bobby Rahal not running very well either, up in 11th position, and Villeneuve is sitting right behind him, and behind him Nigel Mansell in 12th spot. There you see our leader Paul Tracy, alongside him Emerson Fittipaldi, who has not won here at Phoenix, and Bobby Rahal and Jacques Villeneuve, who are both a lap down to those two cars. And as I mentioned, they now have a cushion, a lap cushion, that they can come in and make a pit stop if they need to. The window we saw earlier was about lap 64, 65, somewhere around there. Mario Andretti also made a pit stop because he had to make some adjustments to his wing area, try and get the handling back. A lot of these drivers have been suffering understeer here because obviously, as we mentioned, it's a two-dimensional wing this year. They've reduced the size of the wings. Downforce is not as good as it was, so they're not handling as well as they would like through the corners, but they are able to go a lot faster along the straightaways, getting up to as much as 200 miles per hour. There's Rick Mears, who has been giving a lot of input to Paul Tracy this weekend. Paul Tracy in the first practice session wasn't going very well. He then had a big conference with Rick Mears and found a couple of seconds on the track, and there is the team owner, Roger Penske, who now has 3 cars to worry about, and behind him over his right shoulder you see Shelley Unser, the wife of Al Unser Jr. Roger, of course, very busy here this weekend running the 3 cars. He's out to win this championship for himself and, of course, for the folks at Marlboro, and added a very strong driver with Al Unser Jr., who did not have a good result at Phoenix and is not running as well as he would like, or as well as his teammates here, and that is because he's just not quite confident in that Penske car yet. Adrian Fernandez, the Mexican, who has won here in the Indy Lights Series, says he loves this track, sponsored by the Mexican beer Ducati, running in the Gallus team this year.
Well, the incident from Willie T. Ribbs' accident in turn 1 still being cleared up, and the car still running under yellow flag at the moment. They'll take a few more laps, I think, before they get that situation fully under control, but certainly is interesting to see how this strategy is going to affect the race, with the 2 Penskes staying out, Paul Tracy and Emerson Fittipaldi not coming into the pits, Roger Penske deciding to hold them out there and not to make their first fuel stop as yet. We would expect their first fuel stops to be around the lap 60, between lap 60 and 65. So will they get another chance to make that stop? Will they get another yellow flag before then? We're going to have to wait and see, and this race is going to be very, very interesting. Certainly make sure you stay with us and watch it unfold. Welcome back to coverage of the Phoenix IndyCar race. Still under the yellow flag at the moment for the accident to Willie T. Ribbs, but that incident now nearly cleared up, and it won't be long before we'll get the race restarted. Race being led at this stage by Paul Tracy and Emerson Fittipaldi in the 2 Penskes. Robbie Gordon holding on to 3rd place. Al Unser Jr. in the 3rd Penske. He's made a pit stop. He stopped for fuel and tyres, as has Nigel Mansell and Jacques Villeneuve. Mansell now down in 12th position after a rather slow stop. Cost him a fair bit of time when he stalled the engine and had to have the car restarted, pulled back into his pit bay, then restarted, and that has dropped him down the order a little bit, and he is a lap down on these 2 leading Penskes, as are everybody else who have actually come into the pits to make the first of their stops. Penske's taking the gamble to see whether they can keep their 2 leaders out and still not lose time when they do eventually come in to make their necessary stop for fuel and tyres. So this really does set things up very, very well indeed for a very intriguing race. And once again, the battle between the three different chassis marques in the race. All British built, don't forget, all the cars in the race built in Britain. The Penske cars built in Dorset, the Reynard cars built in Vista, and Lola's built at Huntington. And this 1994 season really turning out to be a wonderful battle between the three different chassis manufacturers. But it's Penske's in charge at the moment. But that could change very quickly as we get the race underway again. Going back to green flag pretty soon now. So what's going to happen as this race restarts? The competitors have completed 37 laps now, so still a long way to go in this 200-lap race. Still another lap or two to do behind the pace car before the green flag comes out. Robbie Gordon in third position at the moment. A one-lap signal being given to go. So as they come round this time, 1 mile to complete and the race will be underway again. Now Paul Tracy led in the early stages, took it away from pole position, but dropped back behind Mansell. Mansell coming through from third place on the grid, taking the lead, beginning to pull away. Then Fittipaldi closing up to Paul Tracy. So what's going to happen as we get this race back to green flag? Let's go back to Paul Page and Derek Daly.
And tracking Michael Andretti as well. He is 14th, lap behind the lead of the race. The pace begins to quicken as Paul Tracy brings them back toward the green flag, almost at full race speed as he comes off the fourth corner. And on lap 41, we're back green. Boy, he got a good jump on that one.
That was a great jump, and it's such a huge advantage to try and anticipate that green flag as you come through turns 3 and 4. But there's Mansell. The first man he needs to go after is Villeneuve. And if he can pass Villeneuve, Villeneuve needs to hang on to him because he's a lap down too.
So the Lion is on the prowl. Villeneuve just ahead. Let's watch and listen. On the backside now, through the dogleg. Still in pursuit. Hasn't made up much time. But remember, in this lineup coming back to the green, there are some slower cars.
See how quickly Villeneuve went by Rahal? That gives you an idea how much horsepower that Honda engine needs to develop to be on par with some of these Ford engine cars. But I tell you what, Villeneuve is a surprise to everybody here, just how well he's handled himself.
Oh, Rahal's lack of acceleration can really be costly to some of the other guys and kill their momentum.
Rahal came here and thought that a good handling car could possibly make up for the deficit. Look at Robbie Gordon, slingshots round the outside of Gordon, outside of Rahal. But Rahal never really got a handle on the handling of this car either. Never mind the horsepower disadvantage.
Let's listen to this engine and also see whether or not he can get around flat at all. Bobby comes by the inside. Struggling. Now Gordon on the attack. Mansell coming forward.
Gordon likes to use Nigel Mansell as his yardstick. He knows how good he is and how successful he is. But Crash Gordon thinks he is just as good, if not even better. So wherever he goes, his yardstick is always Nigel Mansell. That's the guy he chases. Remember in Australia, he crashed trying to chase this man.
As you watch this, don't forget that Mansell and Villeneuve are both a lap off of the lead. And so they're trying to get their lap back. Now the leaders, Paul Tracy, Emerson Fittipaldi, the Penske teammates, running into traffic again.
And that was Davy Jones running an A.J. Foyt's car way off the pace. Jones, another driver who had a huge crash here during the Wednesday test session. He has moved into the 93 car, but he's way off the pace here. Emerson can just sit here. Look at Tracy make all the brave moves. Emerson can sit back, read the situation, see what's going on, because he knows they have two of the fastest cars in this race as they again move on the high side to go around Jeff Andretti.
But isn't there a danger for Tracy as well, and that is that if the leader comes blasting by a slower car, that maybe the slower reacts to the leader, but not to that next quick car?
That is the problem. Look how close they are, wheel to wheel. Great shots from the Goodyear blimp here. That again is Jeff Andretti in the Gillette car. Look how much faster those Penske's are able to dive down into the apex of 1 and 2.
The two Marlboro cars out in front. Al Unser Jr., the third Marlboro car, sits in fourth. Let's go to Gary Gerald.
Paul, we mentioned that the expected window was 64, but the yellow was long enough that it has extended it now to about lap 74 for the Penske team. If we don't get yellow before that, look for those leaders then to have to duck in, and those guys who made the early stops trying to close on that advantage.
52 laps complete by the leader. Bobby Rahal has brought the Honda into the pits. The Miller car, you're taking a hard look at it. It looks to be routine.
Gary, a good point there. Yellow flag is the key to making the gamble pay off again. Look at Tracy trying to go around the outside of Bozell.
He almost got pinched to the wall by Bozell, and now there's plenty of traffic in front of him looking back from Raoul Boisel's car. Camera mounted right under the gearbox. Those are the mounts for the wing, the top of the screen.
Well, you can't get much closer to the action than this. Jimmy Vasser goes around the outside. Tracy down the inside.
Tracy gets past Bozell. Look at Vasser. The 18 car, blue and white. I'll tell you what, he is sharp this year. Definitely a driver to watch. Fittipaldi now looking to the inside of Jimmy Vasser.
The Penske team really expected Emerson to grab the pole. He was the fastest man in the morning session on Saturday. However, he had problems with his pop-off valve, and Paul Tracy went out and blasted it and just beat Villeneuve to the pole by such a scant margin of 0.03 of a second. How big is that? It's about 3 feet at 185 miles an hour.
Battle is here, still at the front of the field. Jan Beekes, what seems to be the situation with Rahal?
Well, it turns out he felt a tire going down, so he ducked into the pits, changed all 4 tires. He's not sure which tire it was. He has the Goodyear engineers at the moment checking each one. So a low tire for Rahal.
That's good news. We didn't see them go for the cowling of the car, so if they think it's a tire going down, at least the motor is still operating. Jimmy Vasser now trying to move to get his lap back.
In fact, he has already made 2 pit stops, so Vasser's had his problems, but now he seems to have it sorted out. That's Brian Till in Dale Coyne's MyJack car that moves down to the inside to let the leaders through.
Let's go back to third place now. This is the battle for third place. Al Unser Jr. is closing on Robbie Gordon. There's little Al. You see him as he ducks under some slower traffic and now is in straight pursuit. That's Rahal just behind, but remember, he's just coming out of the pits. Now Junior's in contact through the dogleg and closing.
Remember, Junior made the pit stop. Robbie Gordon didn't. So if it continues to stay green, Junior doesn't even need to make the pass here because Gordon will have to go to the pit for fuel. When you have 3 cars like Penske has, you can take a gamble with one of them. They did it with Al Jr.
Now, because they did it with Al Jr., and the car is lighter, I mean, almost 300 pounds, the fuel load difference from full to empty. Is this car operating better now?
Well, Junior's will be heavier because remember, he took the fuel on.
Right.
Gordon's should be considerably faster.
That's what I meant.
Yet he's not able to get away from Al Jr.
Third place. Paul Tracy, followed by Fittipaldi, first and second.
Something,
Hold on to this.
Al Jr. takes the low road and Gordon takes the high road and Al Jr. pulls it off. Something we should probably mention. You see the traffic jams here?
Yep.
The number of rookies we have in this race. When you race wheel to wheel at 150, 60, 70 miles an hour with somebody, you like to know a driver's style. Well, with so many rookies, the experienced guys do not know the style of many of the drivers are racing with here. So you have to add in that extra little inch of caution.
So at the top of the field, Emerson Fittipaldi. Al Unser Jr., the yellow has come out. We've got a car against the wall, and it looks to be...
It's a Penske.
Oh, no! Oh, my goodness, how did that happen? The yellow had been out for some time.
Jacques Villeneuve got high, coming through 3, up into the gray, and absolutely rammed into one of those stationary cars.
The yellow flags are out everywhere. We've got several cars damaged. We'll keep track of this, and when we come back, we'll let you know exactly what's happened here. Debris all over the third and fourth turn.
So a terrible incident at turn 3, turn 4 section of the Phoenix International Raceway. There you see Emerson Fittipaldi up against the wall, who just got smashed by Jacques Villeneuve as Villeneuve came around the high side of the track, obviously had not seen that yellow flag, couldn't slow the car down, and just tore apart the 2 cars that were sitting there. Earlier I was about to mention that we had 27 cars still in this field. Now we've just wiped out about 4. That is Teo Fabi, who is also out, and that looks like Robbie Gordon's number 9.
So a very, very nasty accident there. Very bad incident indeed, taking out a number of competitors in this Slick 50 200 at Phoenix. Teo Fabi out of his car, the Pennzoil Special. Reynard up against the wall, involved in that. And, well, the yellow flag was out, and Villeneuve coming round, presumably unsighted. Paul Tracy out of the race, former race leader. Now let's see if we can see what's going on further down the field. Well, Fabi was involved there in that earlier accident, along with Tracy. So Tracy involved also. And then look here as Villeneuve comes through and round the outside. Villeneuve absolutely T-boning the third car, mixed up in the middle of it all. And, well, we have no news as yet, of course, of the drivers involved in the incident. Let's hope that they are okay. These Indy cars are incredibly strong machines. They are forced to be put through a very severe crash test program when they're built, and all of the cars having to pass that test. Paul Tracy being interviewed, but we don't have the sound for that, I'm afraid, at the moment. There is the remains of his very, very badly damaged Penske, and Paul Tracy crashing out from the lead once again, but in very nasty circumstances. Well, after this dramatic moment, we're going to go to a short break here. Rejoin us to see what happens in the Slick 50 200. Welcome back to the drama here at Phoenix. That is a replay of the accident, but let me tell you, the good news is that all of the drivers involved are out of the cars, and none are badly hurt. So that is excellent news. They are all out of the cars, and initial reports are good about all of the drivers involved. It was Hiro Matsushita in the third car that was so difficult to spot in the middle of that melee. Paul Tracy clashing with Matsushita and Fabi in his attempts to lap them as he led the race. There is Paul Tracy's car being carried off from the side of the track. And then Jacques Villeneuve, the blue and white car that came round completely unsighted to find his way completely blocked, T-boning the car of Hiro Matsushita and just ripping the front of his car off completely. But isn't it just a testimony to the strength of these cars that all of the drivers are out of their cars and not badly hurt? So we're going to take another quick look at the accident. Let's see exactly what happened once again. This, of course, is the latter stages after Paul Tracy and Matsushita are there up on the outside. And just look at Paul Villeneuve. He had no way of stopping. He just smashes straight into the side of Matsushita's car. The front wheels being ripped off Villeneuve's car, and thankfully everyone else getting down on the inside trying to avoid all that debris. But whether everybody actually managed to get through there, I'm not quite sure, as they were sliding down to the inside as well. And, well, there you see the cars involved. Paul Tracy, Fabi, Villeneuve. What a shame. Tracy leading the race, Villeneuve putting on such a superb display, putting it on the front row in qualifying yesterday on his birthday, his 23rd birthday. And here today he was putting in a superb performance as a rookie driver, really looking very, very strong indeed, and he had no chance at all in that accident. He himself was going past some slower cars. He was on the outside. The yellow flags probably weren't even out at that point. The accident really had only just that fraction of a second happen. Here's a view from the other angle. There's Tracy on the outside. Matsushita's car being clouted at high speed by Jacques Villeneuve's car. And quite how all of them have got out of the cars basically unhurt is really quite a miracle. But once again, a real testimony to the strength of these carbon fiber tubs used in Indycar racing. Strict regulations on the distance between the driver's feet and the front of the car. It really is a long way between the pedal area on the Indycar and the front of the monocoque, and then with the nose cone section in front of that as well, there is a massive amount of material between the driver's feet and the very front of the car, which is excellent news in this particular accident. Well, certainly drivers. There is Teo Fabi out of his car, the Pennzoil car. We saw him standing by his car anyway, and involved in the early stages of that incident, but certainly not involved in some of the worst parts of it. And as soon as we have any further news on the drivers, of course, we will let you know. We are in fact going to return to our American commentators, Paul Page and Derek Daly, trackside in just a moment to hear the latest news. Once again, the replay. And just look at Villeneuve into the side of Matsushita's car. The wheel bouncing off, and an awful lot of damage being done. Half the car, that is, that's the whole back end of the car. There it is, in fact. The whole back half of Matsushita's car right up against the wall. Back to Paul Page and Derek Daly.
What they were doing while it was leaking was diluting it with water. That's what keeps it from bursting into flames. Let's check in with Gary.
And here you see Villeneuve's car as officials bring it back now, where they will take the excess fuel out of the tank. But look at this nose section. This is carbon fiber. Remember, they made a rules change a year or so ago to give the driver more protection up around the foot box. Thank goodness they made that rule change, because that had to be a huge factor in this violent crash for the young Canadian driver. It just ripped the nose literally off of there. That takes tremendous force to rip that away like that. It's very, very fortunate that he was not seriously injured.
And that's Villeneuve's car, and we're not talking just fiberglass there. All kinds of deformable structure, carbon fiber. And the Renards, they seem to have the driver a little further back than even the rule requires.
That's right, and you can clearly see here the complete pedal assembly is gone from that car, which means Villeneuve probably at the point of impact lifted his feet as far back from the point of impact as possible. But that is a huge crash and a superb test of the Reynard chassis.
And look at the bent suspension members, and think of it, you know, it looks like a small piece, but it takes incredible energy to do that kind of thing. Just awesome.
Carbon fiber is lighter and stronger than steel. Lighter and stronger than steel. They build a survival cell for the driver to sit inside. You can smash it and break it, but as long as it doesn't get into the driver, you've done your job. Happily, we saw Villeneuve walk away.
Pennzoil team gets Teo Fabi's car back out of the way. Still fuel, methanol fuel, pouring out of that car. That is Hero's car. And by the way, this works with methanol. It doesn't work with gasoline. You can dilute with water with methanol and keep it from being flammable. We'll be back with more. We're still under yellow.
So the cars gradually being picked up and the track being sorted out here in the 200 miler at Phoenix after that very dramatic accident, and great news that the drivers basically unhurt. An awful lot of mess on the circuit to try and clear up, though, with Matsushita's car breaking completely in half, and Matsushita, a very lucky man as well not to have been badly hurt in that, and a testimony to the strength of the Lola in his case, with Matsushita out in the Lola and taking a very, very heavy side impact from Villeneuve's Reynard, and really does show the strength of the cars and superb design that has allowed the drivers to get away with an accident like that. So the rest of the competitors coming round, still behind the pace car. They haven't had to actually stop them all in the pit lane. They've managed to keep them all going, and it certainly has changed the order around. But the Phoenix 200, a very dramatic race. Tracy out of the lead of the race now, obviously. That gives Fittipaldi the lead, the man who was pretty close to his teammate as they came round. They'd completed around about 64 laps, so they were coming into what would have been the original pit stop window, where they would have come in for their first stop for tyres and fuel if they hadn't had the earlier yellow flag when we had the incident for Willie T. Ribbs. Now, Emerson Fittipaldi yet to make his stop. We haven't seen if he's come in on this particular yellow flag period. There's been far too much else going on for us to really identify that. But Fittipaldi due in for a stop, so I would imagine that he may well have been in and have had his fuel and tyres. So he could be in a very good position. He was a lap up on the rest of the opposition, along with Paul Tracy at that point, with those two not having made an earlier pit stop. And Emerson Fittipaldi may well, in many ways, benefit from this, although I'm sure that he would much rather not have benefited from it, and much rather not have seen an incident of those proportions happening here at Phoenix. So, several drivers out of the race, Teo Fabi included, this highly experienced Italian racer who raced here at Phoenix way back in 1983, took pole and the win in his first season of IndyCar racing when he was running with the Skull Bandit March team. And so he has good memories here of Phoenix, but also now some bad. There's Emerson Fittipaldi then, our race leader, Alonso Jr. in second, Robbie Gordon in third, and look at that, Mansell now up into sixth place, but a lap behind race leader Emerson Fittipaldi. So Mansell still a little bit down the order. The two Andretti's running together, both Michael and Mario, so we can't tell which one's 8th and which one's 9th from our positions there. 72 laps have now been completed after quite a few laps being run behind the pace car, and now we're getting into the list of drivers that are out of the race, and most of them from that one incident. Ribbs was out earlier on, remember, in that earlier accident, but the rest of them all out in this one incident. That is the back half of Hiro Matsushita's car being picked up, and that is one very second-hand looking Lola, the Ford Cosworth engine in the back of the car. Well, that's really all there is there, the Ford Cosworth engine bolted onto its gearbox, and the rear wheels ripped off the back of the main monocoque section of Matsushita's car. Now then, here we are, having a look back at the initial start of the incident. You've got Matsushita on the outside and Paul Tracy on the inside. No, in fact, that's Fabi on the outside. Fabi and Matsushita actually tangled first of all. So what's happening is the whole incident started with an incident between Teo Fabi and Hiro Matsushita. Fabi on our side here, and you can see in the background race leader Paul Tracy. Let's go back again and have another little look. So Fabi cutting down, Matsushita running out in the final turn. It's difficult to say really whose fault that is as they come round. Or did Fabi actually have a rear tyre go there which helped set him off into that? Difficult to see the initial cause. This rear wheel certainly came off there, and the two cars, Fabi's slams against the outside retaining wall. Matsushita's car now damaged, running towards the outside, and here comes race leader Paul Tracy to collect them as he comes round. Now, he must have hit some debris already at that point, because he was on a trajectory heading for the wall already. He may well have hit oil or fuel that had been laid in the initial accident. I think that's quite likely. Tracy then running wide and collecting Matsushita's car, and it was then that Jacques Villeneuve came on the scene to pile into the side of Hiro Matsushita. So Paul Tracy not guilty, that's for sure, on this occasion. He had absolutely nothing that he could do once he was heading round at very high speed, hitting the debris or oil from that incident, and he really had no choice, nowhere to go. He was straight into Matsushita and straight into the wall. So no blame attached to Paul Tracy, the race leader, who in different circumstances also crashed out of the lead last year, when perhaps he could have been a little bit more at blame when he went off trying to lap Jimmy Vasser. He was a little bit late diving down the inside of Vasser as they went on to lap 161 in last year's Phoenix race, and Tracy then counting the cost with an accident against the retaining wall himself. Well, on this occasion it looks pretty much as though it wasn't his fault, but for whatever reason, Tracy once again crashing out of the lead of the Phoenix 200 miles. This the biggest accident they've ever had at Phoenix, biggest accident in 15 years of racing here at Phoenix, and a very, very unfortunate start to the oval track season of IndyCar racing in 1994. 6 races held on the oval circuits. The big one will be coming up at the end of May when they go to the Indy 500, but several other 1-mile oval circuits on the calendar. They go to Milwaukee straight after the Indy 500. The first oval victory for Nigel Mansell last year, and other 1-mile races also at New Hampshire and at Nazareth. New Hampshire race particularly last year being one of Mansell's finest victories, an absolutely superb race, and Mansell still perhaps with the chance of taking the victory here. There is Jacques Villeneuve, the man who saw the whole front end of his Reynard completely ripped off, and isn't it a miracle to see him walking around in the pit lane now? Absolutely wonderful. And well, it's been a fairly disastrous end to his weekend. It had started off so well with that fabulous front row qualifying position, just a few hundredths off Paul Tracy's time, and really did set everybody talking in the pit lane. Well, Jacques Villeneuve not having the luck here today. Certainly wasn't his fault for crashing into Matsushita, but it was a very, very heavy impact. So the track still being cleared, still an awful lot of clearing up to do, and basically a lot of cement dust being laid down as well to try and clear up the various spilled fluids from that area of the circuit up in turn 4. And Emerson Fittipaldi with an advantage now, having made his stop, but certainly no longer a lap ahead of his nearest opposition. And Alonso Jr. still looking very, very strong in the second of the Penske's. The Penske certainly have been looking strong all afternoon so far. They did a lot of testing here over the course of the winter. As we look from Michael Andretti's car, the Reynard of Michael Andretti, he's a lap down as well. We'll be pleased to see that Mansell is not too far ahead in terms of the overall championship, but it certainly seems as though Michael Andretti has not yet managed to get his Reynard up on the pace of the Penske's, and not on the pace indeed of the Reynard of Jacques Villeneuve for that matter. Jacques Villeneuve, the front-running Reynard in the course of qualifying and in the race as well. And for some reason, Michael Andretti and the Chip Ganassi team not able to get their car running at quite the same pace. They've been testing here through the winter as well and have been pretty much on the pace, but perhaps the differing conditions here not allowing them to really get their car set up as they would want. A new track surface has been laid here at Phoenix since last year, by the way, so that has accounted to a certain extent for the reduction in lap times. They're going faster this year than they managed to last year, even with the changes in the aerodynamic rules, which have actually reduced the amount of downforce that the cars are getting on the shorter ovals. They've reduced the amount of rear downforce by limiting the rear wing to a 2-element rear wing. It was a 3-element rear wing last year, which basically means that they're producing less rear downforce with the cars, running smaller front wings to balance that out as well, and that's why they're gaining a lot of straight line speed, up to 10 miles an hour faster. Here's another look at the accident at its actual speed, and there was Tracy slamming into the outside wall with Matsushita. Watch for Villeneuve to come round. And there he goes, unsighted behind those 2 other cars. That really very much the reason for him crashing into Matsushita in quite the way he did. He was lapping 2 other cars himself. He had to come out to overtake them because he was travelling so much quicker, and really then nowhere else to go. So as I was saying, faster in a straight line on the 1-mile ovals now with their reduced wing size, and the new track surface here at Phoenix seemingly making up for the lack of downforce in the corners. They've managed to get rid of the bump that used to affect the cars in turn 1, and that's another major reason why they're managing to lap so much more quickly this year. Paul Tracy now with the official record around the circuit with his pole time of 20.424. But in winter testing in the cooler weather of January and February, Nigel Mansell was in fact the first man to get underneath 20 seconds here at Phoenix, setting the unofficial record. It wasn't to stand for too long, however, as Scott Goodyear came along a few weeks later with the King Motorsports Lola and actually went a fraction of a second faster, literally around about 0.08 of a second faster, I think, for Scott Goodyear when he came here in testing. But funnily enough, Scott Goodyear really hasn't been going well at all this weekend. He's qualified right down the order in 10th place on the grid. Well, not right down, but certainly a lot further than we would have expected from the man who sat on pole position here last year and who has been setting very, very quick times in the winter testing. So surprising performance from Scott Goodyear, and perhaps another one to keep an eye on throughout the course of the race. They may well have been working on a better race setup. Well, Penske, with their 7 days solid of testing here at Phoenix, really do seem to have found a good race setup for their cars. Alonso Jr. had a big accident in his car, but he's looking very strong. Rejoin us in just a moment, and we should be getting the race underway soon. Welcome back to Phoenix for the Slick 50 200. The car still following the pace car round on this very long and extended yellow flag period after the huge accident that took out race leader Paul Tracy in an instant with Hiro Matsushita and Teo Fabi, and also the man who'd been running so strongly in the leading Reynard, Jacques Villeneuve, who had been up in 3rd position, dropped down to 4th place and was putting in a superb rookie performance. Villeneuve crashing heavily into the side of Matsushita's car, but thankfully all of the drivers involved in the accident unhurt and walking around in the pit lane, explaining to everybody just what happened. Emerson Fittipaldi leading the field around. He is the race leader, and he's been touring around at a fairly slow speed now for quite a long time. We're around about the 80 lap mark now into the race, 80 out of 200 laps, but with laps being eaten up at the rate of 1 every 20 seconds. Once this race gets underway again, things will start happening very, very quickly. So you can see a lot of work still going on the circuit as they're trying to brush the cement dust into the surface to try and soak up as many of the fluids that have been laid there as possible, and try and allow the drivers to restart the race on a safe circuit as much as that can be done. Well, the opening 2 rounds of the IndyCar season certainly have seen an awful lot of delays for a variety of reasons. The first round at Surfers Paradise starting off so late after delays with the rain and blustery showers coming in from the Pacific Ocean, delaying the start of the race. The race finally getting underway only for the leaders to be out of position and the other back markers having an incident, so the race getting underway very late indeed, and now this race at Phoenix also being slowed down by a big accident. Let's hope the rest of the calendar we can see there is a little bit more according to plan. Long Beach coming up next week. You can watch that here live on Eurosport once again, and all of the other races in the 1994 calendar, finishing off on October the 9th in California at Laguna Seca. Next year, the series starting off in Miami rather than at Surfers Paradise. A change around for the 1995 season. Miami heralding the start of next season's Indycar series, and then the cars going to Surfers Paradise for race number 2 on the calendar. Well, we're deep in the Arizona desert area here at Phoenix, way south in the United States, making it a favorite place for the winter testing for the teams. Really, this is the only 1 mile oval circuit that they get the opportunity to test at over the winter, and thus the great deal of testing that goes on here from all of the major players. But once it comes to the race, the temperatures have increased, and that can quite often change things around from the format that they had in testing. Teams now working out their new fuel and pit stop strategies, but of course that really is going to depend on what happens once we get this race restarted. Last year only 13 finishers still running at the end of the race, so it is a race that tends to see quite a lot of incident and accident. Last year we saw quite a lot of damage and incidents against the wall. Nigel Mansell starting things off with that accident in qualifying. Paul Tracy going out after leading the race. Robbie Gordon crashed out when he was running in 3rd position as well. Fair few retirements as well. This track being at the fastest of the shorter oval tracks puts an awful lot of strain on the engine and transmission components of the cars, and therefore a fairly high mechanical dropout rate as well. There are the positions at the moment. Fittipaldi leads Unser, Robbie Gordon in 3rd, Johansson in 4th, Mansell in 5th position, with a lap down on race leader Emerson Fittipaldi. Mario Andretti competing in his last race at Phoenix as part of his Arrivederci Tour. The last one for Mario. The Slick 5200 now about to get underway once again after the yellow flag period that lasted for so long and took out Paul Tracy, race leader. Now Emerson Fittipaldi leading the race. Let's go back to our American commentators.
Mansell trying to tuck in, find position so that he can get around and get that lap back. He's going to be racing very hard. If we've had 2 yellows thus far, which by the way is the lowest number of yellows ever at this track, then one can certainly anticipate another possibility. Look at up there as Mario skates a little bit coming off of the 2nd corner.
The car must be loose. The worst condition you can have is the car to begin to jump sideways on you between these concrete walls, and Mario has that condition. Look the way he backs up and holds up everybody. There's Al Jr. about to make a pounce.
Junior trying to get up through this field. Fittipaldi's loose and pulling away. Junior wants to stay in contact. Robbie Gordon staying in there tight as well. He needs to catch up to Junior. Key here, though, remains Mansell. He wants that lap back. The car is fast and capable.
Robbie Gordon still in attack mode, but Al Jr. hangs on. Maybe this is the race that will give Al Jr. that little bit of confidence that he has seemed to lack since he moved to this Penske team, because he has not shown championship form yet.
See the distance there that Fittipaldi's pulled out. There's little Al running in 2nd. 3.5 seconds the interval. 3.55. Al Unser Jr. running alone now. Look way ahead to Fittipaldi. 3.5 seconds is an eternity on a 1 mile oval.
It really is. Jeff Andretti still rotating rotates here on the 1 mile oval, moves aside, but Al Jr. is just running about 0.8 of a mile an hour slower on average than Emerson in the last 2 or 3 laps.
Last lap, little Al really got caught up in traffic. His average fell off almost 5 miles an hour from the leader, Fittipaldi, as he handled up the traffic. And you can see, too, the dust that comes up in that turn every time they go through where the debris and the oil dry was laid down on the track. Plus, the winds continue to blow here. The American flag on the pole in the center of this track is standing almost straight out. Nigel Mansell, he continues to work his way up, Jan Beekes.
That's right, you're talking about Nigel trying to get that lap back, but keep in mind, if he wants to make this a 2-stop race, he has to stretch the fuel right now. So he has to decide, am I going to get the lap back now, or am I going to get myself in the right serial so I can make fewer stops? Right now, a lot of strategy down here.
Very good point. The leader of the race has just completed the 96th lap. Can they make this a 2-stop race? They can carry it just a bit further. It's very possible.
Al Jr.'s already made his 2 stops. Stefan Johansson, who's currently running 4th, has already made 2 stops, but Emerson and Gordon have only made 1.
So riding with Nigel Mansell. He's trying to get that lap back and trying desperately.
It was Emerson he followed yesterday in the final practice session when he lost control right there at turn 4. But boy, he got awful close again as he went down into turn 3.
Now Mansell comes charging down. That's Fittipaldi just ahead. Looking for room. Last time through this dog leg, Fittipaldi chopped him a bit.
Mansell is much quicker through there. On the acceleration out of 2, through the dog leg, he actually pulled more than a car length on Emerson. But I'll tell you what, that Penske seems to be very good as he turns down into the corner, down to the apex.
Fittipaldi clears the traffic. That's Adrian Fernandez, who is not in contention here. Long stops early. He runs 17th. He's past Fernandez.
See how quick that happens? I mean, Mansell goes right to the edge, slingshots out, wheel to wheel, and just flies by. Now he's got to see all the debris on that front straight. We've had swirling winds here all weekend, and some of the drivers actually contributed the winds to some of the handling difficulties they've had.
Fittipaldi, when he flashed across the line on the last lap, completed 100 laps, 100 miles, half the distance. The leader at the halfway point has won 3 of the last 4 races here at Phoenix. Unfortunately, last year wasn't one of them. Paul Tracy into the wall last year as the leader, into the wall again this year as the leader. Nigel looking for that opportunity to try to get back on the lead lap. But remember, it's not only back on the lead lap, he still has a mile of catch-up.
That's John Paul. You can see clearly he saw Fittipaldi and he stayed high. Now he needs to give Mansell that little piece of room. He needs to move high. That's it. That's it.
Good job for John Paul.
Drafted in at the last moment to drive Tim Duke's Proformance Team low-C car.
So Nigel Mansell continues to try and play catch-up with Emerson Fittipaldi so that he can get back on the lead lap. And the Penske cars run 1st and 2nd at Phoenix.
Just look at those standings. See that Michael Andretti there in 6th place. Now, still 1 lap down also on the leader, but Michael Andretti, still like Nigel Mansell, on the same lap. And Andretti, winner from Surfers Paradise, will be keen to try and stay in touch with Nigel Mansell in terms of positions so that he doesn't lose out too many points to Mansell as Mansell tries to work his way up through the field. Well, the Penske still looking very, very strong, particularly in the hands of Emerson Fittipaldi and Alonso Jr. 105 laps about to be completed as Emerson Fittipaldi comes through. So just over the half distance mark now. And Fittipaldi looking very strong indeed. But we've still got another round of pit stops to make, at least 1 round to go. And other yellow flags could well affect the outcome and could well play into Nigel Mansell's hands. He's lost out a little bit in terms of strategy so far in the race, but quite often strategy goes to the advantage of one team, only to switch back to another team. He's still chasing after Emerson Fittipaldi, has managed to close that gap up once again, but Fittipaldi really is diving through the traffic And certainly down into turn one here, he is very quick indeed. He's got a little bit slowed up behind Stefan Johansson. Johansson, in fact, running in 5th position. Now, if Mansell can find a way past Johansson as they come round here, Mansell is going to move himself up one place. Mansell closing right up to Fittipaldi again, trying to get back onto the lead lap. This could make all the difference if he can find a way past Fittipaldi, because when the yellow flag comes out again, as it most likely will with further incidents in this race, then Mansell will be able to join back onto the tail of the queue and could then be only a number of cars behind Fittipaldi instead of being a whole lap behind him. So Mansell really will be very keen indeed to try and get past Emerson. Try and get up on the one lap. So Fittipaldi still leading then. Alonso Jr. in 2nd and Robbie Gordon in 3rd. So Emerson Fittipaldi still in charge of the Slick 50 200 in the Penske Ilmore. The Penske absolutely flying at the moment, and it's his teammate Alonso Jr. who's holding on to 2nd position. Nigel Mansell trying to make his way back up through the field. He's now up into 4th position himself, having just finding a way past Stefan Johansson.
Not totally fit, really only minor injuries. Not only really to Hero, so we wish him well. Possible mild shoulder separation. Look at the debris, what a mess. Winds are really blowing here and blowing debris onto the racetrack. Bozell high, look at Mansell. Mansell comes low, trying to unlap himself. Plenty of traffic there. Davy Jones to the inside. Jimmy Vasser sits to the high side, and Mansell is back on the lead lap.
Brilliant move, a brilliant move pulled off by Mansell, and he did it by lining up correctly and anticipating the slow traffic on the way into turn 1.
Nothing like a 3-rail billiard shot to get through traffic. Boy, you're talking skill.
He has patiently waited behind Emerson. You have to be so patient here at Phoenix because there's such high speeds here, and a small mistake can be a disaster. But that was a brilliant move, and that is a battle for position. Right ahead of him, Michael Andretti and Jimmy Vasser.
Battle for 6th place. So Mansell's going to have to be careful, recognizing that he is in the middle of a fight as well. And of course, you got little Al now trying to close down on his teammate Fittipaldi. A lot at stake here. Driver may want to be courteous at one of these points, but he can't if he's involved in his own fight. There's little Al to show you the distance back.
We must remember Mansell has only made 1 pit stop, as has Robbie Gordon, as has Emerson. Al Jr. has made 2 pit stops.
Here's Nigel's maneuver.
A good look. Now look how far behind he is. Emerson gets trapped. Mansell is high on the power. Powers past Bozell. And powers past Emerson. Perfect move by Mansell.
Back on board, Nigel Mansell. Kmart, Texaco, Havel, and Lola. The blimp up there. It's great. Wonder if Mansell looks up. Do drivers ever look up and see what's in the crowd or anything?
If you blink, you miss the racetrack. Never mind trying to see what's up above.
Blink, don't see that turn. You're gone. The order again. Fittipaldi leads. He just flashed across the line. Al Unser Jr. is 2nd and a half back. Then Robbie Gordon. And then Nigel Mansell, who is well back. But on the lead lap. He ends those on the lead lap. Raul Boisel. Number 5 car. There it is. And how about taking a look at the performance telemetry on this car? Is that cool or what?
Telemetry has opened up a whole new world, and Ford Electronics supplies this telemetry to us here. Look at the miles on the right-hand side, 173. Not as quick as it should be. That's why we see Bozell not...
At the lead of the race, Al Unser Jr. has now closed, and he is on the back door of Fittipaldi. They come under Mario.
Remember, we saw Mario in trouble earlier on. That car is loose. He has made 1 pit stop. Obviously, he's trying to make this just a two-stop race, or else he would have been in the pits because he is running very slowly compared to the leaders.
119 miles complete, 80 to go.
In 10 years of IndyCar racing, Al Jr. has had 3 pole positions. He's not that interested in qualifying. But by golly, when it comes to the race, he is dogged when he gets the smell of victory. And we are seeing him now beginning to show the type of form that Roger Penske knew he had, and that's why he employed him.
Overall important maneuver in his career, trying to show Roger and the rest of the world that he is still extremely competitive, and there is no question at all about that.
So Alonso Jr., the new member of the Penske team, really putting the more experienced Emerson Fittipaldi under some pressure now. Robbie Gordon in third, Nigel Mansell up to 4th position and back onto the lead lap. That's the key thing, because now if the yellow flag were to come out and everybody was to bunch up, then Mansell would simply be a few cars behind Emerson Fittipaldi rather than being virtually a whole lap. And don't forget, a whole lap here at Phoenix is only about 20 seconds, so Mansell only some 20 seconds or less now behind the race leader, Emerson Fittipaldi, and that's not an awful lot. So Fittipaldi still leading from Alonso Jr. in 2nd place as they fight their way through the traffic once again. There is Emerson Fittipaldi diving down the inside of Maurizio Gugelmin. Gugelmin struggling a little bit here this weekend, but Fittipaldi getting past his fellow Brazilian without too many dramas. But certainly so many battles going on through the field that Fittipaldi finding it hard in places to get past some of the slower cars. Alonso Jr. dropping back again once more in the traffic. He had closed right up to Fittipaldi, but now has dropped away just a little bit. Robbie Gordon continues to hold on to 3rd place in the Valvoline car. We haven't seen an awful lot of him in recent laps, but he's still there and holding on to that position. We've completed around about 125 out of the 200 laps now. Teams beginning to think seriously about the next fuel stop. We would expect them to have to make the last fuel stop by lap 135 or so. So we are going to be getting into the next round of pit stops fairly soon. Don't forget, they're running to different pit stop strategies at the moment after the earlier incidents. And Fittipaldi and Mansell certainly running on different strategies, and that could affect things once we get towards the end of the race.
And it's because of a system like this that gives them so much information that on a track like this, they can make the tactical decisions that they have to make. This presence of EDS in the computer system has really helped how they stage the race.
Tremendously. Can you imagine if we were in the old days when you took your pencil and your paper and you tried to write your lap chart? You would never do it because of the speeds, the variety, and the number of fast cars nowadays.
You know, there is only one scorer that I ever saw who could really, well, there are 2. Barbara Hellier, who still scores for Penske, and Betty Rutherford, Johnny Rutherford's wife. It was amazing to watch them pencil score an entire field with laps running at 22 seconds. Just awesome.
And even though EDS is now here, I don't think those girls are even in retirement yet,
No, they're still flat out at it, and good. Nigel Mansell, you look backwards. By the way, what you're seeing is Emerson Fittipaldi. That over in the right-hand corner is just a little vent hose that just kind of bounces there. It's not a loose part. In the pits, let's go to Jan Bikas as Nigel Mansell turns down onto pit road. Jan?
That's right, Paul. We're standing by waiting for Nigel Mansell. Tom Wirtz is waving his arms, showing Nigel where to bring the car to a stop. We were right. He was having to save a little bit of fuel so he could make this window. He's just inside the window to where this will be Nigel Mansell's final stop. They've got the front tires off. So far, they're not expecting any changes, but we'll keep an eye up on the front. Yes, Tom Wirtz is going just very slight wing change, only a quarter of a turn. Waiting for the last bit of fuel. Nigel's on the ground. Oh, boy, he has to kill it this time. 14.7.
Yeah, there wasn't any question. He wasn't going to get that engine stalled again. Then both of the tires and out he went.
Oh, he's off the road. He's off the road. He's on the grass.
Oh, my goodness.
behind the 8 ball on that first pit stop when he stalled it. Now he almost does the exact opposite with way too much enthusiasm, i.e. wheel spin, and he was lucky he didn't get collected when he got out onto the racing line.
That's a cold tire issue, though, right? I mean, he had a fairly good turning moment going there and couldn't get it done. Let's take a look.
It was a cold tire. Unfortunately, it was only the fronts that were cold because they're fried now, those rears.
The rears are now fully up to temperature. The fronts are not. And now watch.
Now he turns in.
And
Look
it won't.
He's already out of grip.
He turns, it doesn't.
Boy, he has enough presence of mind to back out of the power to keep that car straight. And as he flies out into the racing line, look, it's Scott Goodyear comes down the inside and waves his fist at Mansell. Well, there will be words there from Scott Goodyear to Nigel Mansell.
When you come off like that onto the grass, what's the sensation? Like ice?
Like ice, like the water. And then what you have to do is forget about the power. You have to get out of it and use your steering wheel to just keep the car straight. That's the most important thing.
I wish we had a little telemetry on Nigel's heartbeat right now.
The car with the luminous red rear wing, that is Scott Sharp. He was exceptional all weekend here, all the way from the Indycar test that they had Monday and Tuesday. Believe it or not, Scott Sharp, he was in the top 3 many, many times here. Just hasn't quite hit it right for the race. But a man with 0 experience on oval tracks in an Indycar, in anything.
We watched him too. Scott moves up, makes a pass on John Paul Jr. and moves into the top 10. Now, as Nigel came out there, came out alone, spun the rear tires, a lot of exuberance off onto the grass, out into traffic, almost could have been a serious accident. It wasn't. Is this now an official call? Is there maybe a black flag in the offing?
I think there has been discussions of a black flag. I don't think they should give a black flag. In fact, they're not going to give a black flag. That is a racing incident. It's not something he did intentionally, like blocking somebody or anything like that. That is just like over-exuberance, which is part of the reason why Nigel Mansell is Nigel Mansell. That is his style. Give it 110%, even if you're on the racetrack or on the grass.
They decided, they did discuss it in race control, and because he was on beyond the blend line, well, part of the race, if he gets it going, keep going. By the way, his teammate Mario Andretti came in and made a stop as well during all that.
Now, I'm sure if you asked Scott Goodyear, should it be a black flag, he would have given up black flags and red flags and all sorts of flags.
He tried to wave it from the cockpit as he went by. Watching Nigel Mansell now. Let's go to the onboard camera in replay of Nigel going out of the pits. There he engages. Wow, does he? Now watch. He's going to start a turn here, and it isn't going to work.
Now listen to the throttle. See the way he feathers till he has it straight, and then he goes.
There's a good example of when they talk about how gentle you must look at that maneuver. Whoa!
Brian Till gets his doors blown off and his mirrors sucked
Emerson
off.
Fittipaldi turns down onto the pit road. Penske pits are all the way at the far end, and Gary Gerald waits for Fittipaldi's arrival, the leader of the race.
It's a poised veteran team that springs into action. The car comes to a stop. 3 times he's finished 3rd here at Phoenix. He's never won. Will he be able to protect the lead? We watch and we listen. They clean the radiator index. You talked about all the debris. He's off the jacks. He's rolling. 14 seconds.
With the stop, Al Unser Jr. picks up the lead of the race. He stopped on lap 79, the same lap that Fittipaldi stopped on. So one would assume that Jr. will be turning down on that pit road pretty quickly. There he is. He's going to stay on another lap. 144 racing laps, 144 racing miles complete, 200 the scheduled distance in the Slick 5200. Now Al Unser Jr. due in for a stop. Let's get an update.
We're expecting that Junior will be in on lap 147, although the crew has just gone over the wall. Jan is right there. He'll get a good look at it. He's alongside with the crew, Paul.
That reminder, reset the meter. Derek, the reset the meter on the board, That's for the fuel flow?
That's for the fuel flow.
Doesn't matter here, though.
Right. The digital countdown on his dashboard counts the fuel he is using. So in other words, it would start at 40 gallons and count its way down. But Unser Jr. is now in the pit lane, and Jan Beekes is there.
That's right. Unser Jr. brings it right in on the marks. Roger Penske himself holding the sign. We can see they're changing the front wings. That was a considerable change on the inside left front wing. Tires are going on now. It looks like they added more downforce. Unser Jr. probably had a little bit of push. They also said, yes, they have something inside the radiator duct. 14.2, Al Jr. underway.
I'm not so sure that what was in the left front cooler duct didn't get right back in it. There was a piece of debris under the left front wing. You can't really see into that duct, but boy, let's keep an eye on it. Because if you cover up in this desert air, though it's rather cool here today in the 70s, you cover up one of those coolers with some debris and that engine will overheat right now.
In the old days, when people exit the pit lane here, you actually went straight to the apron, which is down on the slowest line.
Well, the stops made for the two leaders now, Emerson Fittipaldi and Alonso Jr. have now both made their final pit stops of the race. We've got around about 53 laps to go in this Phoenix 200-mile race, so not that long, with laps being completed around about the 21-22 second mark. Emerson Fittipaldi looking for his first ever win at the circuit, and Alonso Jr. similarly looking for his first win at Phoenix as well. His father won back in 1985 for the Penske team, and Alonso Jr. would just love to try and emulate that performance. He has not yet won a race for Penske, obviously. This is only his second race for the team, and his first race at Surfers Paradise didn't go too well. This was him leaving the pits after a very quick stop from the Penske crew, and the Penske team really are putting in an excellent performance in the pit lane. Nigel Mansell a little bit upset after Surfers Paradise that the Newman Haas team effectively were beaten in the pits on a couple of occasions, and Mansell keen to see his team getting back on the pace with the pit stops. Well, Nigel Mansell has been making a bit of a mess of the pit stops himself today, stalling on the first pit stop that we saw or didn't see earlier on, and then in the second pit stop so nearly causing a big accident by going over the grass, exiting the pit lane. Well, he managed to get away with it, and Scott Goodyear a masterly piece of avoidance as Mansell came out onto the circuit. So Mansell still chasing after the leaders, still on the same lap, but currently in fourth position behind Emerson Fittipaldi, Alonso Jr., Robbie Gordon, then it's Mansell and Michael Andretti still in the hunt as well. But this is still looking very good for the Penske team at the moment. They've lost Paul Tracy, their pole sitter, who crashed out in that nasty incident earlier on, but the rest of the team is certainly upholding the honour at the moment. Emerson Fittipaldi, the Brazilian, who interestingly enough made his return to motor racing 10 years ago when he came back into the IndyCar series, having left motor racing when he had suffered in Formula One with his own team in Formula One and had competed unsuccessfully in his own Formula One team, making the return to IndyCar racing. There is Robbie Gordon. Robbie Gordon is slowing down. He is out of fuel apparently, so Robbie Gordon coasting out of third position. So that puts Nigel Mansell up one more place. Robbie Gordon, is he going to make it back to the pits to refuel? It is possible. Let's go back to Paul Page and Derek Daly. Let's find out what's happening.
For Robbie Gordon, I don't know whether he's going to be able to make it in.
I don't think so.
They'll have to go get him.
His pit is well down. His crew can come down and get him once he gets past the first area of the pits.
See that? He says, I need a push, I need a push.
Jan Beekes, you watching this?
Yes, what has happened is they have just dispatched the crew. They're running as fast as they can around the back of the pit. No, now they're back. So they must... Oh, they're just about knocked me over. They're trying to get back over the wall to do service on Robbie Gordon.
He'll be on the radio. He is telling everybody, please push me. His hard-earned third place is slowly creeping away. And Johansson in and Tony Bettenhausen's Penske, the Alumax car, now inherits Gordon's third place.
They're trying to get Gordon out of the high-speed running lane. He's trying to get him to push harder. Look, he's furious. Now his crew joins him, and they take over trying to get him down into his area. They've chosen a pit that was almost down to the far end by the Penskes. And let me tell you, that's not easy. Over 1,500 pounds of race car there, plus the driver. Stefan Johansson, who was running in third, came into the pits, and finally, Gordon's car makes it in. Al Unser Jr. gets second place now as a result of this out. Let's go pit side, Jan.
Well, Robbie Gordon is here now. Of course, once they get the tires changed, they'll have to refire the engine. If you run it out of fuel, it doesn't start that easily. The interesting thing is he was actually not due to come in here until 3 laps. So obviously their calculations here in the Walker pits were way off. I would say it's probably a fuel pickup problem because they're very accurate in keeping track of fuel. At the moment, they're trying to refire Robbie Gordon, but at this moment, he's not up and running.
There he goes.
Yeah, that is the key. Fuel pickup. You hope that the fuel pump will draw the last dredges of fuel down at the bottom of that fuel tank. It doesn't always happen. There may have been 2 or 3 gallons still left in Robbie Gordon's car that the fuel pump just could not suck out and stick into the injection.
Michael Andretti was into the pits. You also saw Stefan Johansson, who was in. He was in third place until he made the stop. And so here is your leader, Emerson Fittipaldi, with Al Unser Jr. moving into second place. The 2 Penske cars are the only cars on the lead lap. Nigel Mansell is now in third place. And this car was fourth until he came in, Jimmy Vasser. As he came into the pit, Stefan Johansson moved back into fourth. And Mike Groff with Honda Power runs in 5th place right now. He started 20th. Update on Michael Andretti as we watch out the back of Michael's car. Gary Gerald, you have something.
Well, Paul, while that stop was being made finally by Robbie Gordon, Michael Andretti also came in for his final service. Unfortunately, stalled the engine as he started to leave. Took time to get refired. Now back out on the racetrack.
Michael Andretti in the center of the needle on that one. Look as he comes back to challenge Fittipaldi. He didn't like that, so let's go racing demo.
Well, this is a pointless exercise for Michael because that is not for position. He should just let Emerson, the leader of the race, go by. But Michael never touched the sweet spot of this Reynard chassis here all weekend, having had such a tremendous run in Australia. He was so infuriated after Friday's practice session, he was actually shouting at his engineers. Now, not at them, but because that was just venting his frustration, because Michael was not able to show his talent here because he couldn't touch that elusive sweet spot.
Here's the running order with the interval. What you might notice there, Michael minus 3 laps, so that little show of power wasn't even to try to stay on a leader lap or anything. He's 3 laps behind the race. The rest of this field is strung out well behind, and Andretti is in trouble. And we've got more trouble again. Debris on the track, and it's caused some other problems. And one tire went over the top of that fence and up toward that hospitality tent. Mario Andretti sits low on the track. Michael Andretti heads into the pits with no left front wheel on the car, so Michael was in that accident too.
Can't see there what started that incident, but Mario had been running slowly, and there's a second incident. There's the wheel over the top of the fence, and we don't know yet where that landed.
Look straight up and down. Those are the suspension members from the left side of Michael's car. The tire out of the ballpark.
Both Andretti's out in one fell swoop.
So the yellow flag is out third time of the day at the 166th lap. The tire went up and over the debris fence and up toward the spectator area. Looks like somebody is going to have a story to tell, limping, but it doesn't appear that he's badly hurt. Oh, thank goodness. Thank goodness. The racers understand the danger. Spectators should never be involved. Mario loses it. Back wing comes off. Plenty of debris out there. Traffic closing.
It is still difficult to see why Mario spun and hit the wall backwards with that left side. But then the incident happens behind him with Scott Goodyear and Michael.
Boy, as soon as Michael's right front touched Goodyear's left rear, right up in the air. Look at the tire as it goes over the top.
Well, thankfully that tire, although it did hit somebody's leg, it sure looked as if it wasn't a heavy impact, and that person, as you said, he does have a war story to tell now, but thankfully we did see him walk away.
So father and son, the same accident and out of the race. We're under yellow again. Fittipaldi and Unser in front.
Well, incidents aplenty here at Phoenix. It really has all been happening, but there you can see the positions. That is Michael Andretti taken out of the race after an incident, after his father Mario crashed on the back straight. And what a great shame for Michael Andretti. Although the car not going as well as he would have hoped, he was still in a position to score some points. He was running in 7th place with the Reynard, and that would still have given him a good few points in his chase for the championship. This is Michael Andretti. Let's see what happened. And yes, indeed, you can see basically no chance there. The white car, which we didn't quite spot which one it was, slowed down so suddenly that Andretti had no chance to back off. His left front wheel went straight over the left rear wheel of the car in front, and that's ripped off the wheel, as you can see there. So Michael Andretti out at the same time as father Mario. Emerson Fittipaldi continues to lead the race from Alonso Jr. and Nigel Mansell in 3rd position. Rejoin us in just a moment for the closing stages of the race.
Eurosport Live.
Welcome back to the Phoenix race. There, the top 6 positions after 167 out of the 200 laps. Emerson Fittipaldi and Alonso Jr. still leading for Penske. Nigel Mansell in 3rd position. Stefan Johansson in 4th. Then Jimmy Vasser holding on to the next place. The rest of the field, and much as last year, we've lost quite a few competitors in this race through a variety of incidents. There is Michael Andretti's Reynard in the pits. The left front corner, the left front wheel having been ripped off in an accident on the back straight after another car slowed violently in front of him, avoiding Mario Andretti's accident heading up towards turn 3. So the yellow flag period as they collect up Mario Andretti's Newman Haas Lola. Mario out of the car and unhurt, and Michael Andretti similarly unhurt. Here the point standings from the first race, Michael Andretti with the win and leading the most laps with 21 points. Fittipaldi in 2nd place, heading for the lead in the championship if he continues the way things are going at the moment. Alonso Jr. back into the pits. Now, wonder why Junior has come back into the pits. Perhaps he's picked up some debris himself. Alonso Jr. rejoining the track, hoping to hold on to his 2nd place, or perhaps to even challenge teammate Emerson Fittipaldi. But a few more delays before we can get the remaining laps underway. Less than 30 laps remaining now till the end of this race, but it has been a fairly long drawn-out affair with the various incidents and accidents that have taken place. Mansell holding on now to a fine 3rd place, however, even with the various dramas that have affected him. Here's another look at the accident from another view. There in the background, the car of Mario Andretti hitting the wall, and an unusual place to go off, it has to be said, there as they head up towards the final turn. So perhaps a breakage on Mario Andretti's car, and there in the background the other cars coming through. The wheel flying into the air of Michael Andretti, the car right in the front of our shot there, missing its left front wheel. That wheel flying up into a hospitality area, but thankfully nobody badly hurt by that flying piece of suspension. So very, very fortunate indeed. The amount of momentum that wheel would have carried could have done and inflicted an awful lot of damage. So Fittipaldi continuing to lead the field round. There's Scott Goodyear, second in the rank, but Alonso Jr. in second place, if he hasn't lost that second place with that extra pit stop. We just saw him come into the pits to make an extra stop. It could well be that he picked up some debris from that accident and picked up a puncture. Let's go and rejoin Paul Page and Derek Daly.
Let's go to Jan Vikas for an update on Al Jr.'s strategy.
Well, you mentioned that he came into the pits and took on 4 fresh tires. It was not because of debris. They wanted him to have brand new tires. They made a front wing change because he said the car was pushing, and they said, hey, we got a lap on Nigel. We're going for the front. We want to give everything we got here in the pits.
All right, as they come back to green, here's the situation. 174 laps complete. Just 25 miles lie ahead. Emerson Fittipaldi is the leader. Al Unser Jr., you see him back just a little bit. He is running in second place. Nigel Mansell is third. Stefan Johansson is fourth, and Jimmy Vasser is fifth. Only Fittipaldi and Unser Jr. are on the lead lap together. The other two, well, Mansell's on a lap by himself, a lap behind the leaders. Johansson is 2 laps behind, and Vasser is 3 laps behind. So the battle is at the front. Can Al Unser Jr. catch his teammate? Here comes the rest of the field through, and there's little Al.
Now remember, Scott Goodyear, he was at the head of this pack here, other than Fittipaldi. He got a lick from Michael Andretti as he went by. He obviously doesn't think there's any damage with that car because he's quite prepared to stay on racing speed.
The trick is for Al Unser Jr. in 24 miles to try to catch his teammate and get around him.
This is Bozell chasing Stefan Johansson. Back to our forward telemetry. Now you can see he's up into the 180s, so running faster than he was earlier on. Look at the RPM. Throttle position. 100%, 196 miles an hour. Woo! He's going quick.
We're talking a mile here, a mile track.
Watch the numbers.
Look at him climb.
Woo! Into the 90s again, front and back straight. That is how quick they run around here between the concrete walls.
Ford Electronics, by the way, working constantly on this telemetry. Probably going to see brakes, gear selection, steering wheel deflection, all kinds of stuff the teams don't want us to have. Now Jan Vikas, an update on Raul Boesel.
Well, what we found out is that Raul dropped back earlier because the car was very loose. It was stepping out at the back. Now the Dick Simon team has had a chance to make those repairs. That's why we're seeing those high numbers, but he still has not much time to move up the order.
And the very highly regarded engineer Mo Nunn has moved from the Ganassi team to look after Bozel's car. This year, he was within a tenth of being the fastest car right before qualifying yesterday, and then just lost a little bit of the sweet spot.
181 laps are complete. Al Unser Jr.'s job is to try and close. There are no other direct conflicts on the course, though Mike Groff is trying to close on Jimmy Vasser for 5th. We'll be back with more of the Slick 5200.
Just 19 miles remain in this Slick 5200 of Phoenix International Raceway, round 2 of the PPG Indycar Series, and what a thrilling one it has been. Emerson Fittipaldi still looking for his first win here at Phoenix. He led this late in the race last year before succumbing to some debris on the track and taking him out as he now laps Bobby Rahal. Once again, Rahal about 7 laps back now. Emerson Fittipaldi leads. Al Unser Jr. second. Nigel Mansell a lap down is in third. Stefan Johansson fourth. Jimmy Vasser fifth. The Honda of Mike Groff is sixth. Raul Boesel, Brazilian, seventh. Robbie Gordon, after running out of fuel, is now 5 laps down, but is running up in 8th. And Scott Sharp, the rookie, making his first ever oval race, is in 9th. And the Mexican Adrian Fernandez in the Gallus Racing entry is currently running in 10th. Harry Lyondike, who's been in and out of the pits all day, as far as our international viewers are concerned, has gone out because of electrical problems. Paul Tracy is out because of the incident earlier. Dominic Dobson, Jacques Villeneuve, Teo Fabi, Hiro Matsushita, Willie Ribbs, those guys are all out, as are now Mario Andretti and Michael Andretti. We have 18 cars running. Marco Greco and Jeff Andretti running at the back, but are about 20 laps down. John Paul Jr. currently running in 16th. Gugelmin is in 15th, and in 14th it is Bobby Rahal in his Honda. It sounds to me like there is a mechanical problem. I'm not sure if we're picking up the right car at this point, but I was going to say maybe on Nigel Mansell's car. You see the heavy clouds there, but no real threat of rain, as there's only about 17 laps left in this event. At 22-second lap, this is going to be over any moment now, and Emerson Fittipaldi could well pick up his first Phoenix International Raceway win.
13 miles to go at Phoenix. Emerson Fittipaldi is the leader. Al Unser Jr. 15 seconds behind. He made up 2 seconds on the last lap, but it's going to be a desperate drive if he's going to catch his teammate. On board the Rahal car, as we take a look at the Valvoline race recap after 182 laps. Average speed is dismal owing to the 3 yellows for 51 laps. 9 cars out of the late race, so we've had 5 different leaders and 8 different lead changes. We've had a good afternoon. We've had some scary moments. Big multi-car accident. Second yellow taking the leader of the race, Paul Tracy, out and cutting Hero's car right in half, though no serious injuries. Maybe a shoulder separation on Hero, the only injury of what was a spectacular accident. Emerson Fittipaldi leads it. 188 laps are complete. Emerson Fittipaldi has not won on a 1-mile oval since Nazareth in 1990. Let's get an update on Emmo. Gary Gerald.
Well, the Penske team backing Emerson Fittipaldi now likes that length of the margin of that lead, and they're concerned about him saving the car. So they're trying to get him to relax his pace just a little bit. They want to make sure that he finishes these last 12 laps. He's got a huge cushion right now, Paul.
Oh, shades of Indy. Bill Holland to the old easy side. They slow down the leader, and the teammate comes up.
Let me tell you also, if the Penske cars finish first and second, everybody will be out building these new shark fins that Penske has on the back of his car, because for sure they'll think that's part of the reason why they're so fast.
Won't have a clue as to what the aerodynamics are really doing. We're going to tape one of those fins on. Last time cars finished first and second at Phoenix, 1984. Tom Sneva, Howdy Holmes. Will they be doing it again? We'll be back for the finish.
So Emerson Fittipaldi, who has finished third here 3 times, back in 1986, 1991, and 1992, after 11 starts at the Phoenix International Raceway, is looking to post his first victory for the Marlboro Penske team this year, and his first victory here at Phoenix. A great start to the Penske team, and as Derek Daly just briefly mentioned, those fins could suddenly be very popular as we go to our next 1-mile oval, which will be Milwaukee in the first week of June. Of course, between now and then, we go to Long Beach, the street circuit around Los Angeles, and then following that, of course, it's the whole month of May to be spent at the Indianapolis 500, where this year we have 108 cars already entered for that event. Of course, only 33 will make the field. Emerson Fittipaldi, the 1993 champion at the Indy 500. This will certainly shake up the points battle. In fact, it will give Emerson Fittipaldi quite a healthy lead in the championship if he can continue to take this lead and go away with the victory. And it'll also make the boys back in pool very happy as the Penske crew attacks this 1994 championship. Al Unser Jr. is going to finish second, and that'll be a wonderful 1-2 for the Penske team. Nigel Mansell still running in third, a lap down. Stephanie Johansson in fourth. Jimmy Fassett in fifth. Great start to the season for him. Mike Groff in a Honda is sixth. Raul Boesel seventh. Robbie Gordon eighth. Scott Sharp ninth. Adrian Fernandez is 10th. Scott Goodyear 11th. Davy Jones will round out the point scoring people in 12th position as he races for A.J. Foyt.
Emerson Fittipaldi with 5 laps to go. His competition, his teammate Al Unser Jr., still right at 15 seconds back. If they've asked Emerson to loosen up a little bit, he doesn't seem to be having any part of it. Matter of fact, he just cut his fastest lap of the race at 167.2 miles an hour.
That is the type of confidence Emerson has in this car at this stage of the race. The Penske also using this weekend here the new BBS Ford magnesium wheels. So whatever's new, whatever's trick, Roger Penske seems to have it. In fact, that BBS wheel is very similar to the one that they use in Formula One.
So Emerson Fittipaldi, the car number 2. And by the way, we are well over our time block here scheduled for this race. And we're not going to get to interview Emerson, assuming he is the winner. At the end of the race, we're going to be very, very short on time. because of the accidents, almost a half an hour over.
And the second fastest man on the racetrack at the moment is Nigel Mansell. You see him on the outside there, around the outside of Davy Jones, I believe. However, he's trying to get by the leader. That will only put him on the same lap. So Mansell is in an uphill battle and a struggle right now.
Emerson Fittipaldi on the final lap of the run. Al Unser Jr. No chance whatsoever. I'm sure were we able to talk to him, he would tell you that his Marlboro Penske was incredible and the Elmore engine worked great. It's the job that it's doing now and has done all day. As Emerson Fittipaldi screams for the checker, Nigel Mansell moves to the inside, but he's still a lap behind the lead, and Al Unser Jr. will come across the line in second place. So there is Fittipaldi acknowledging the victory. And there's the way they finish. A great run for Stefan Johansson and for Jimmy Vasser. The final standings, they are, of course, unofficial here until they are posted, but there should be no reason for a protest. So at Phoenix, it's been a confusing and an interesting afternoon.
Well, a tremendous result for the Penske team then. Emerson Fittipaldi taking the first win for Penske of 1994 and his first win at the Phoenix circuit. Al Unser Jr. backs him up with a fine second place and his best result for the team, setting himself up well for the rest of the season. Nigel Mansell in third place as well. In the overall championship, Emerson Fittipaldi now takes the overall lead, having led most laps in this race as well, taking the extra point. So that'll see Emerson taking the lead in the series with 37 points. Up into second place, surprisingly, in the championship now, with a fine fourth place here at Phoenix, Stefan Johansson, the man who was so unlucky last year, having some good runs, but in the first part of the season, never managing to get any finishes in. Stefan Johansson now coming through into second place in the championship, and Michael Andretti, after his win at Surfers Paradise, will still hold on to third place in the series. Fourth place to Jimmy Vasser, another surprise, the man in the Reynard who's been performing so well this year. And then next up, Nigel Mansell will now have 19 points in the championship. Well, the Penske team absolutely delighted with that result, and no doubt Emerson Fittipaldi is as well. Second in last year's championship to Nigel Mansell. He was the highest money earner due to his win at the Indy 500, winning over $2.5 million. He started off this season superbly well. He leads the PPG Indycar Series as they head off towards the next race at Long Beach next weekend. You can watch that here on Eurosport. This has been Ben Edwards. Hope you managed to stay with us all the time. Look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.
Firestone, the science of safety, brought you the Indycar World Series. Indycar, together with Valvoline. Brings you the Indycar World Series. Indycar, together with Valvoline.
Hello and welcome to IndyCar Racing for round 3 of the PPG IndyCar World Series from Long Beach, California. This is Ben Edwards, and together with our ESPN commentary team headed by Paul Page, Bobby Unser and Sam Posey, I'll be setting the scene for the 20th running of a major race through the streets.
Warm up this morning, had to make an engine change.
If the story of the championship so far has been the parity in performance of the 3 different chassis used in Indy cars this year, especially in qualifying, then this weekend someone appears to have rewritten the script. The Penske dream team of Paul Tracy, Alonso Jr. and championship leader Emerson Fittipaldi has grabbed the top 3 places on the grid, and Nigel Mansell, who took a superb pole here last year, has had to make do with just 4th place on the grid. Well, Nigel Mansell is 18 points behind Emerson Fittipaldi now after the first 2 races of the championship, so he really